Hey friend, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Heather and I love painting photorealistic images with oils and I love helping you know how to do it too. Today we're going to talk about how I put the image onto the canvas, how I paint it, all of the ins and outs of what goes on inside my brain as I'm trying to convert this onto the canvas and really enjoy the process. Let's go. Today, I'm not going to go into all the process of what I'm using, all my materials, but I will tell you the paints I'm using. I'll put a link below to the colours that I'm using, just if you're interested. I'm using about 8 different colours today, some bright pink, some brown, black, white, blue and yellow, just sort of a spectrum of some really nice rich colours because there's lots of rich colours in this painting. I use an iPad when I'm working and it really helps because I can actually have it close to my image. When you're working on a photorealistic painting, it really helps to have it close to you rather than have it, if I had that sitting over here on an iPad or a computer or whatever, by the time you move your head back to here, you've forgotten the detail. And I need it really close. And I move this around so that the image or the section I'm working on is actually right up in this corner so I know where I am. It's really easy to get lost when you've got so many squares and so much detail. I really love painting with the detail. The process of starting in one corner and then just working my way across is so rewarding. I love also painting on white canvases because especially when I'm painting something that's got lots of vibrant colours, so I really know those colours are going to be vibrant. Some people like to put a wash of a different colour underneath their paintings. I don't really go there. I like this way of doing it where I actually really know what colour I'm working with and get that paint happening right then and there. So with an image that is this big, I will start in one corner and I'll go across, especially if it's very detailed. If it's something that has a lot more sort of open space and there's clouds or there's something a lot more bigger to work with, I would probably do the background first, and then build on top of that if it mostly is a sky, and then I'll build on top with the clouds or whatever. But with something like this that is so detailed, you just will get lost if you start putting big flat colours everywhere. You want to start from one area and just build across really slowly and enjoyably. Is that a word? I just love it. So I'm going to pull you in now to the canvas a bit closer so you know what's going on in my brain and you can work out how you can do it too. All right, well, we have our lovely palette here, which has plenty of colours on it. So I'm just going to work out where I am to start with. Often just have my finger on the spot when I'm painting and showing you that's the square that I'm working on, and it's really hard to keep track if I don't have my finger on the pulse, so to speak. Here I'm using paint to just draw in. Often I do it with pencil, but this is a very detailed painting, so I actually just don't even use necessarily the right colour to draw these images in. I just get a dark colour, maybe close to what is on the canvas or on the image, and just get the shapes in. I really love to get that in and move along rather than draw the whole thing up first. I quite enjoy that. But what I often do, well, I will start with thinking about what's the colour, sort of roughly what is the colour. And I threw in some grey here. So what I will do, I can see here that there's sort of some greeny colours in here that I haven't actually put in. So I'm just going to start with mixing up sort of some greens. There's a bit of yellow on my brush, so I know that that's going to be green if I put it with some black. So I'm just going to sort of come over here and, okay, that's sort of a green. As I look on here, I think to myself, oh, it needs to be a bit more blue. So I will grab a little bit more blue to it. Just put that in there, just a tiny bit. I'm really not using much paint at all, a tiny bit of medium. And I feel like that has got close to that colour now, so I'm going to pop that in. I don't get worried about, it's a little bit more medium might help to get that on a bit better. I'm not going to worry about it being exactly the right colour. I feel like it's a little bit too green, but right at the moment what I'm trying to do is just get the shapes in, because I can see that there is like some shapes that sort of go over like this. So I'm just getting that shape in. And what it does is it actually helps your brain relax a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, I've got some paint on. Now I can see the shape Now I can work on the colour. Otherwise, you're thinking about too many things at once. It's a step at a time. So here, and I'll just go, okay, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of blue on my brush. I might mix it in. That was not a tiny bit. That was too much. But as you can see, I just keep playing and playing until it sort of works. I don't mind that. It's got some lighter sections to that, so I'll grab a little bit of white on my brush, tiny bit of white, and then I'll come in around where I can see it needs to be lighter. So very small amount of paint on my brush as I'm doing this. All right, okay, so now around here, I notice that it's a lot lighter, and it's got some rainbow colours in it too. So I'm going to grab some more white on my brush. I know that on my brush already is a colour, and I'm always thinking about what colour is on my brush. And when I mix it with a colour that's on the palette, it's going to make another colour. And it does take time to learn this sort of process. Often I'll find people mixing up colours with their palette knife and mixing all the colours ready to go. But when you're working with something like this, there's so many variants of colours that I'm always trying to think. As you can see on the palette here, there is just so many variants of colours on there that, yeah, I don't at all use a palette knife, and I'm only using very small amounts of paint at a time as well. So around here we've got sort of a rainbow colour, but it's a bit grayer here, so I'm going in to grab a little bit more white on my brush, and it's still a bit too green, so let me make that. I'll grab some black and some white, and then we'll just grab some black and some white there and make it a little bit lighter. That's right. And what ends up happening when I'm working on these palettes is that I start to get to know where the colours are. Like I might have mixed this interesting green up. I'm like, oh, it was over here. So I can actually go and use that and add other colours to it. So as I'm progressing through the painting, I'm actually looking and using some of the colours that I've already used because I've got a little bit more there. Sometimes there's not a lot left and I have to mix up a bit more, but there's usually enough there because this is very thin. I'm not a very traditional oil painter. I use acrylic brushes and I work very thin, enough to cover the canvas and cover the pencil marks. So it's a really beautiful, thin, soft layer going over the canvas. All right, so let's get back in here. We had some grey coming around this extra section here. I'm just going to fill that in. Again, I'm not trying to be perfect here. It's definitely nothing like the picture right now. And while I've got that colour, I'm also thinking about where else on here is there that colour. And I noticed that there is some grey over here as well, and there's some grey up here. It's not exactly the same, but it's a good start to just sort of get some base on. I like to just get some paint on while I've got that on my on my brush. All right, so now we've actually got some rainbow colours happening here. Now I often only use one brush, sometimes two. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to grab my paper towel and I'm going to wipe my brush as much as I can, give it a good wriggle as well, good wipe like this. And then I'm going to find, I've got a bit of an orange in here, so I've got this beautiful pink. I'll grab some yellow as well. And then we're going to lighten that a little bit with some white because it's not that bright. All right, and then we're going to come in here. I notice that there's some lovely, I know that when I'm going over the grey it's going to dull it, so that's what we want. We want it to dull it a little bit. So a little bit there and there's a little bit here. All right, just a tiny bit. All right, and then it goes to yellow and then it goes to sort of like a turquoise colour as well. So I'm going to wipe my brush again because I've got too much of that bright colour on it. Now I'm going to go to the yellow, and this yellow is a bit too dark, so I'm going to grab some white with it to make it a little brighter. There we go. I'm going to put some of that bright yellow through there now. Okay, and then it sort of ends with some turquoise. All right, so wipe my brush again. I'm wiping my brush all the time. Oops, now I dropped my palette. Now we've got some turquoise here somewhere. I think I've lost it in amongst all this from yesterday. See if I can bring it back to life. A little bit of turquoise there, good. And then a bit of white with that, just to give it a bit more, not so intense. All right, so let's put that turquoise in there. Now I've noticed it's a lot lighter than that, but I'm just putting that in to get me started. I'm going to wipe my brush again. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but there is some beautiful rainbow colours through there. I'm going to put some more white on my brush now because everything's a bit too bright. So I'm just going to lightly touch it with some white, just to sort of pull it all back a little bit. Wipe my brush again, grab a little bit more white, just a very, very small amount on my brush. And get this a bit brighter over here. So still see the turquoise a little bit more white. And a little bit more white down here. As I said, that grey wasn't exactly what I wanted before, so now I'm going to go and grab a little bit of black and just sort of darken it a little bit. Oh, that was not even any black. That's better. All right, a little bit of black just to sort of bring some shape into that. All right. The most important thing with when you're painting something photorealistically is that you get the tones right. The colours are not as important. You could be painting a black and white picture or a monotone of some other colours and it would still look real. Yeah, so don't get too worried that you're getting the colours wrong. It's much, much more about the darks and lights, which is what I'm trying to get right now, is get these darks in around this image here. All right, so now I'm just looking at some of the other shapes and coming up through here, just getting some of those shapes in. I'll move this along so I can see where I'm going. There we go. It's a little bit browner, so I'm going to grab a tiny bit more brown and a tiny bit more black just to get that brown feel in there. I haven't used a lot of medium, just a very small amount just to get it to go on a little bit smoother. All right, we've got this lovely thing happening here. This is, we've got some like turquoisey, bluey colour in here. So I'm going to go back into my turquoise now. I know I had grey on my brush because it is a bit of a grey turquoise, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to grab that. It needs to go darker, so I'm going to grab some blue. Where's the blue? Here it is. Just going to make this a little bit darker. Add a tiny bit more brown to this greeny weird colour and come in here and put that in. It's a little, I've got a bit too much medium, so I'm just going to grab a bit more paint. It was going a bit too slippery in there. All right, so that's it there. It comes around here. All right, a bit more paint, a bit of black, a bit of blue. I need to get more turquoise to make this work, I think. Just wanted to make that a bit thicker in there so it worked better, covering all of the white space. As you can see today, I've just been going in and just now looking back and going, how do I darken, how do I lighten, how do I make sure I've got sort of the colours sort of right. I'm not convinced they're exactly right, but this is all underwater. Who knows? It could be different coloured rocks than no one will know they're exactly different to what they are here on the photo. So I'm not going to get too super worried about exactly the right colours. What I will do at the end of painting this is I'll be comparing the photo and the painting and just checking, have I got sort of the tones right, and adjusting things, and maybe adjusting the colours a little bit at the end, just putting a little wash here and there just to make it work. Yeah, so I hope that's been helpful for you today. If you've got any questions, comment below. And if you want to know how to put a grid on your own photo so you can do something like this, there is a link below as well at paintingwithheather.com/grids. Until next time, I hope you are doing something creative for yourself. And if you want to go down this track, it's so rewarding. It's just the best therapy in the world. I love it. Even if no one ever saw these paintings, it's done its job because I love the process. Until next time, keep creating.